Okay, we'll call the meeting order at 5. This is an informational meeting about our finances, projects we have coming up, and I guess we'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, all right. Well, good evening. Thank you. Jeff Rao with Baker Tilly, and Adam with me as well, Wilcox. So Adam kind of helped put all the information together, and so him and I are going to kind of tag team here. What we thought we might do is just start out with, I might kind of walk us through a high-level overview of the Senate Bill 1, kind of talk about how things, at least the way it's written currently, may impact the town, and in terms of sort of reshuffling our property tax and income tax system. And then Adam's going to kind of walk us through, on the civil side, the comprehensive financial report, really kind of mainly focusing on general fund, kind of your major funds in light of kind of Senate Bill 1. And then I'll sort of wrap things up with just kind of covering the utilities, the financial management reports for the utilities. So feel free to interject any questions you have as we kind of go through this. And this is admittedly, this is a lot of information, and I wasn't planning on covering it all. I kind of thought we just kind of hit the stuff that may impact you guys mostly. But if you have any other questions, obviously just let us know. So at a high level, and I'm just going to be kind of working off or kind of speaking from this staple handout first. But Senate Bill 1, really what that's doing is it's sort of resetting our property tax, kind of our property tax structure, and also income tax structure. And what it involves is really a 6-year phase-in of really household deductions and credits. And we'll kind of walk through that. And then on the income tax side, it's essentially eliminating the current lit, the way it works, and eliminating that and doing away with that in 2027, but it's replacing it with a new income tax structure. So we'll kind of talk about what that looks like. So I kind of apologize in advance if we're kind of covering stuff you already know, just let me know if that's the case. So page 4, just a little bit of information on the changes in the homestead property assessment deductions and credits. So starting at the top, you can see each year there. There's a standard deduction which you're aware of on your homestead. Currently, it's $48,000. So when the county's calculating your property tax bill, they start with your assessed value, and then they back out a standard deduction, which is $48,000. And then there's also a supplemental homestead deduction, which is the next line down. Currently, you get a supplemental deduction of 37.5%. And then there's a supplemental, well, I'll get to the other credits because those are new going forward. But that's kind of the way we're currently set up. So you get the $48,000, and you get another 37.5% credit or deduction on your property tax bill to kind of come down to a net assessed value, and that's what your homestead is taxed on. Okay. So what Senate Bill 1 or Senate Rolled Act 1 does is, starting with the standard deduction, you're going to see that that's rolling off. So it's going to go down, which in theory, if that goes down, that would raise your assessed value, right, and raise potentially the tax that you would pay. Totally goes away in 2031. However, they're offsetting that with increasing the standard homestead deduction below. So you see currently we're going from 37.5%, it's going all the way up to 66.7%, okay? So the increase in the supplemental homestead deduction is going to by far go beyond what you're currently getting as far as reducing your assessed valuation. So at the end of the day, what will happen is, and just disregard any increases in your value of your property right now, because no one can really predict exactly what that's gonna do, but let's just say the value of your property remains the same. Going forward, your assessed value will go down every year, more and more, which means you're gonna pay, if nothing else changes, you would pay less in property taxes, okay? Now, the flip side of that coin for the town is, as the town's total assessed valuation goes down, what happens is, let's say we're assuming you're gonna continue to levy the same amount, right? Because your expenses don't go down, right? You're still gonna need to levy the same amount every year or more. But what happens is, as the assessed value goes down, what that does is it increases your tax rate. So when your tax rate increases, then what in turn happens is that those that are, is everyone familiar with circuit breaker, kind of what we're referring to as circuit breaker? So the 1%, so any homesteads, you're capped at 1% for your property taxes. That includes county, town, everything. But anytime a tax rate goes up, whether it be the town or the county or township or schools, you're gonna see more and more people hit that 1%, right? So that means we're gonna call the town, and everybody in the county would collect less in property taxes. So we're gonna see a reduction in property tax revenue as a result of this. And there's been some, we'll kind of get into this. The Legislative Services Agency, LSA, has done some original estimates as far as what they think the reduction in revenue is going to be. We know it's not 100% accurate. It was just the original estimate. We're working through our own estimates now, but we're going to see some significant reductions in property tax revenue because of Senate Enrolled Act 1. So that's kind of the first really thing that's happening here. Senate Enrolled Act also establishes some additional credits to homesteads, like 65 and over, disabled, and all that. I don't think that's going to have as much impact, as supplemental homestead deduction that we're seeing up there, but there are some additional credits that have been added into Senate Enrolled Act 1, okay? Everybody kind of understanding that so far as what, so at the end of the day, we're looking at a reduction in property tax revenue at the municipal level, okay? So what does that mean in terms of, well, if you turn the page on page 5, I kind of want to just show you an illustration or an example of a sample home value, and we just picked, I don't know if this is the average home value, but $240,000. Let's say you have a home that has an assessed value of $240,000. And then what we're showing you is what the reduction in the assessed value would look like just for this example of a home value, okay? So currently, in 2025, if you have a home value of $240,000 and you take into account both deductions, you would only pay taxes on $120,000, okay? As these new deductions roll on, you can see what the annual reduction is going to be in that home value, okay? Which is not a bad thing for the homeowner, at least keeping all other things equal, right? Because you would expect to see a reduction in your property tax bill. Not withholding the, disregarding any increases in taxes, right? Which we know that's going to happen. So that's a good thing, I think, for the homeowner. However, that's not a good thing for, as a town, we're collecting property taxes, right? Because we think we're going to have to raise taxes now because of these reductions in assessed value, which means more people hitting the circuit breaker, which means less revenue being collected here at the lower level. So you can see a pretty significant reduction there, going from 120 all the way down to $80,000 through 2031. And that's just one property, right? So you multiply that times all the other homesteads and you're looking at a pretty significant reduction in your assessed valuation. Okay, that makes sense? There's also a new standard on the next page, page 6. This is for the 2% properties, so this is anything other than residential. So this would be agricultural, non-homestead, residential, and long-term care facilities. So this is for those properties that, where the cap is at 2% for their property taxes as opposed to 1%. So SEA 1 is adding a new standard deduction for those properties, which starting in 2026 is 6% and goes all the way up to 33% for them. Same thing, same principle applying here. It's going to result in lower assessed valuation for these properties, perhaps lower property tax for them in terms of what they pay, which means lower property tax revenue for the town. All right. So that's really kind of the quick thumbnail overview of what's changing as far as homestead and 2% properties for property tax values. Page 7, there's also being a change in business personal property. So this is for industry or commercial that have their own personal property that they're taxed on. So right now, businesses are allowed to apply depreciation to their equipment, okay? And right now, there's a 30% floor. So you can depreciate, but there's always this 30% floor where you still have to pay taxes on that equipment. Going forward for any new equipment, that 30% floor is going away. So any new equipment that's placed in service starting the beginning of this year, that floor is going away. And so you could get into a situation over time where equipment is fully depreciated from a tax standpoint, and then the town's no longer collecting business and personal property tax on that equipment. There's also a de minimis exemption from taxation, and you can see the numbers there. So right now, it's $80,000. So there's if you have $80,000 or less of equipment, you're exempted from the tax. It's another $80,000 in 2026, but then that goes up to $2 million in 2027. So again, this is all sort of geared towards reduction of taxes, which is good. Not so good for local government, right, who has to still pay bills. So this is another layer of change in the tax law that is negatively impacting local government in terms of collecting less property tax or taxes in general. Okay, next page, page 8. Lori, I know you're familiar with this, others may be. There's a max levy growth quotient every year, right? So your levy is what you actually collect in tax dollars. And every year there's always been a growth quotient that's applied, that's set by the state. And for 2026, it's capped at 4%. The original estimate, I think, from DLGF originally was like 5.6. So they're capping it at 4. So next year for 2026, the most you can grow your levy is at 4%. Then after 26, the maximum growth quotient will be based on, well, it says based on the current formula. So it's a 6-year average of non-farm personal income. So don't know what it'll be going forward. It really just kind of depends on how it plays out based on that formula. And then, let's see, what was the last point here? So this is out of ways, but beginning in 2029, the new law states that the budgeted property tax levy may not exceed the levy of the preceding annual budget unless the fiscal body adopts an ordinance affirming a tax rate and a tax levy increase following a public hearing. So essentially, it's gonna add, and this is still a ways out, could change, right, between now and then, but it's gonna add an additional public hearing to your budget adoption process if you're raising your levy and your tax rate. Okay. So nothing to worry about this year, but something we'll monitor kind of going forward. All right, so just a couple more slides here on the SEA one. So kind of now switching on page 9, switching to income tax. What's changing on income tax? So going forward, beginning in 2028, we talked about how the state's doing away with lit. And how lit works currently is the county has a lit rate, and then each overlapping unit, so the town in this case, receives a share of that lit, right? That's how it currently works. Going forward, lit is going away. And if you look at the far, not the blue column, but the far right pink column, under municipalities, population at least 3,500, that's where the town falls, right? Because you have like over 5,000, I think, population. So for towns your size or larger, you'll have the ability to adopt your own income tax rate. And the maximum you could adopt is 1.2%. So this, again, this will happen, you would budget this in 27 for 28, right? Yep, so you can establish 1.2% income tax. So that's for municipalities. You can use it, same uses as you can for the general fund, so it's pretty flexible. The idea here was it's supposed to replace what you're currently getting in lit and potential losses from the change in the homestead credits. Okay. Now, what we're seeing is, in some cases, that's true. It really all depends on the community, right? Because everybody's different. Every community has a little different makeup in terms of industry versus residential. You know, there's so many things that come into play, and you really have to do an individual analysis for each city or town. So in some cases, there's winners, in other cases, there's losers, where if a municipality adopts a 1.2, in some cases, it's enough to make up for your property tax losses and what you've been collecting from the county and lit. And in other cases, it doesn't even come close. Working with a fairly large city right now, in fact, I was just having a conversation with them this morning, and their annual lit is somewhere currently around 34 million. And based on if they adopted a 1.2%, they're only going to collect about 15, 16 million. So it's literally almost cutting their income tax in half, income tax revenue. So it just kind of depends, you know, how the kind of the makeup of the local community. So, but that's what's going to happen going forward with lit, and then the ability for you to, because you're above that 3,500, you do have the ability to adopt a 1.2% income tax rate. All right, I think that covers most of it. There are some changes to community crossings, page 12. So in terms of CCMG, you're aware, I'm sure currently you have a local match that requires 25%, and that's going to be reduced down to 20% for municipalities with a population less than 10,000. So you would be included in that, and then you would have the ability to adopt a wheel tax, but it's not required as part of the CCMG program. But there is some incentive, I think, to potentially do that and help fund some of your Ribbon Street projects. And I think everything else is just sort of, you know, maybe not as important, but I think that really covers most of kind of the high level impact in SB1. maybe before we kind of jump into the CFP, anybody have any kind of questions on any of that, or other questions about Senate bill action?
Just basically, so what I'm hearing is the money that the resident would be saving on their property taxes is really gonna do nothing if we're gonna have to implement new taxes.
Taxes increase. So the impact is, I would say that right now the impact is kind of unknown. And we're working on a model right now to where we're gonna be able to, like, on a county-wide and then drill down at the city municipal level, do a parcel by parcel analysis that looks at, okay, what are the true losses here that we're gonna see? And then how does that translate into the impact to the individual property owner? So right now, we don't have those numbers, but you're right. I mean, in some cases, it's all gonna depend on, do all these units adopt the income tax, and do they adopt it at the full level? What is the population of the community? Because if you're less than 3,500, you have to go to the county and request an income tax, and is the county gonna approve it? I mean, there's so many things that are in play. It's really hard to determine at the end of the day, is someone actually gonna see a reduction in the taxes that they're paying? Whether it be income tax, business personal property tax, or property tax for homesteads. There's so many moving pieces and parts, it's really hard to know, really, are they really gonna see a tax savings? And for some, yes. For others, I don't know that that's the case. But what we do know is it's creating some challenges for local government, right? Either county, municipal, schools, it's creating some pretty big challenges.
It doesn't look like it could be kind of marginal though, because right now with your assessment, you show that it's a single-digit change, when combined with the standard deduction with the decreasing homestead value as those two intersect. I mean, we're talking about a single-digit change in the taxes.
Well, this is a single digit. Are you looking on page 5?
Yeah, I'm looking at the bottom row that shows
Yep.
the proposed change, and you're saying this is based on information that's not 100% solid.
Yeah, so what we're showing on page 5 is the change, the reduction in the assessed valuation. So that's not necessarily a reduction in the tax bill. That's just a reduction. I mean, all other things being equal, I guess it would translate into potentially a reduction in the tax bill if your assessed valuation is going down, by 4% in 26, and then another 6% in 27, and so on and so forth. That could translate in a reduction in the property tax bill to the homeowner. But really what this is doing, it kind of apples and oranges. This is just the assessed valuation for this sample home value based on 240,000. But if you add up those single digit increases, it comes back to a pretty, over time, fairly significant decrease in the assessed valuation. So we're looking at 4, 6, 10, 16, trying to add my head here, but 22.
Yeah, I hear what you're doing with it cumulatively, but I'm just saying year by year, I don't know. I'm listening.
Yeah, and maybe I'm not following your point, or your
I just feel like you're saying cumulatively over, like, say, the course of, what this is showing, so 6 years. Over 6 years, it's a big chunk that we're gonna miss, over the run. But I'm saying year by year, it's a single digit difference. It almost doesn't seem like it's gonna be the massive tax shortfall that it's being proposed to be.
Yeah, and we'll get into, and Adam will kind of share with us kind of what and again, these aren't our numbers, these are LSA numbers as far as what the potential shortfalls will be. So kind of when we get to Adam's piece here, he'll kind of share what that looks like in terms of dollars.
Thank you.
Yeah, shortfall, yep.
No, it was, I'm good.
Yeah. Any other questions on, I guess, on that kind of overview? If not, we can kind of start diving a little bit into more specific numbers on the town and kind of what that means as far as impact, so. Adam, you wanna maybe walk us through a little bit there on the CFP side?
Yeah, perfect, thanks, Jeff. The first couple pages, I'm just gonna speed through, because these are really just kind of summary information of where the town's been historically. So on the first page there, on page 1, you can see just kind of where we've been at in terms of property tax and circuit breaker. So you can see you've had a little increase year to year in terms of property tax, but as those have crept up, so have circuit breakers.
So that's page 1.
Yeah, page 1. In terms of page 2 there, you can see just how your tax rates and NAVs have risen over the years. And you actually saw a little bit of a dip in tax rate as you've seen your NAVs climb from 21 to 25. You saw a little bit of a decrease in 22 and 23 and tax rate before seeing a little bit of an uptick in 24 and 25. Then at the bottom of the page is just where your local income tax has been. 24 is a little bit misleading because you guys got a much larger supplemental share that year versus the other years.
Was that okay, so that would be the yellow.
Yeah, the yellowish
category there.
Yeah, you can see the year before it had been around 5,000 to 10,000. That year, the supplemental was up to around 45.
So roughly 200, so last year, and then looking at 25, we're looking at about 275,000, $280,000 total.
273 with the supplemental.
Okay.
And then on the next page here, we have how you guys have trended budget to actual. You guys have done a good job each year staying within the budget you've set. On average, you guys have spent around mid-80s of your budget each year. Of your main funds there being general, motor vehicle highway, local road and street, parks, public safety lit, CCD, CDET, and CCI. Page 4, I'm just gonna skip over that there. Those are really just the SEA changes, high level that Jeff's kind of talked through. And I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit into page 8, which is really the meat and potatoes of it. It's the general fund, and put some numbers to the page of what Jeff was talking about conceptually. So working down the page here, the first thing we have is property tax, and your 25 estimates are based upon your certified amount from your budget order. For 26, as Jeff mentioned, for property tax, we use the 4% MLGQ number, the growth quotient there, and we've assumed to be conservative for 27, 28, 4% increases those years as well. So that's the first line there. In terms of circuit breaker, for 25, once again, that's based upon DLGF numbers. For 25, that was around 14%. Your circuit breaker is, or 13.5 of your gross property tax. For each subsequent year, 26 through 28, to be conservative with all the SEA changes, we've actually increased what we were using as the circuit breaker loss percentage. So each year we bump that up just a percent, like I said, to be conservative there.
So as an example, so in 2025, you'll see, 2024, you see 39,000 was the actual circuit breaker loss. And then 2025, remind me, Adam, that jump up to 52.8, is that based on?
That's based upon DLGF's estimates that they have posted.
Okay, not LSA numbers, that's just
But
what they're saying.
that's just what's,
Okay, got it. And then you'll see that bump up even further then when we get out to 26, 27. So 59,000, this is on that line 3, 65,000 and 72,000, which would be a recognition, and these are still estimates, obviously, but a recognition that because of the SEA one, we would anticipate more folks kind of hitting that 1% cap and 2% cap, which would increase the circuit breaker losses at that point.
And like I said, for right now, we just use 1%. As we get more information, we can dial these in, later in the year, Lori, but right now, it's just kind of directionally correct there. Line 5 is the estimated SEA, LSA, the Legislative Services Agency, the losses they were predicting. So what we did, we took the overall numbers they gave and allocated that to each of the property tax levy funds based upon their respective percentages of the overall levy. So you can see, starting in 26, that hits the general fund for about 26,000. And then the worst year is 27 with around $32,000 of a hit, and then back down to 25,028.
So this is kind of getting to your questioning, Councilman, about, when you kind of look at that individually and percentages, not a whole lot. So for the general fund, we're not looking at a huge amount of loss there, at least based on what LSA is saying in total. So, 26, what that means would be somewhere around $26,000, and 2026 would be the potential revenue loss within the general fund as a result of the Senate Roll Act 1.
Okay, I guess the reason I was a little excited about it is that it seemed like it was just a foregone conclusion that because the tax base has gone down by this much, that we're gonna have to put an income tax in to make up the shortfall. And I just felt like that would be something that, due to, there are some people that have fairly good jobs in this area, that would be significant. And then it would be something that I would be concerned might cause, our census to go down. And we would lose the best people that are here as far as people who are contributing to the tax base and the quality of life and quality homes and whatnot. So it just seemed like it would be something that could have a downward spiral effect. And,
Sure.
I'm not excited about that.
Sure. And you bring up a good point, because I think some of the conversations that are being had around the state and the legislature, I think something maybe that could, I'm speculating here, but maybe something that's lost on the legislators is that, even though they give communities the ability to implement their own income tax rate, right? I mean, okay, here's to kind of help make up. But kind of your point, I think is what part of your point is that that's not a given. I mean, it's not automatic, like you automatically get income tax now, right, from the county. Going forward, you would have to enact a new tax, which is gonna impact people, and that's gonna create, burden. And so that's something that I think maybe the legislators haven't really thought through all of that, because it's not just a given that, okay, everybody's gonna adopt the 1.2.
Right, but
Some
even
people may not wanna do that.
at 1.2, I mean, it's not unusual in this area for a steel worker to make $150,000 a year. That's kind of a median steel worker. And so if you tell him that he's gonna have to pay an extra $1,500 a year in local Westville taxes, it's just, it may not be enough to have him move or her move, but, it's something that would be significant.
Yeah, good point. And for what, kind of on that note, I think what we assumed here, and Adam, you can correct me on line 10.
Yeah,
we have assumed.
I assumed up to that maximum 1.2% of AGI, and I'll hop ahead to that line since it was brought up. But in terms of the municipal lit rate, I took the 60K median household income that I pulled from the census right now and adjusted that based upon your guys' historical trends each year to get up to a 2028 base, and then multiply that by your, for the census, 724 households to get an adjusted gross income number. And then, as Jeff said, I took you guys up to that maximum of 1.2%, which, based upon conversations here, maybe you guys don't want to go that high, but that would be the upper limit there. And that puts you at around $629,000 of municipal lit, which The caveat is, you guys, as Jeff mentioned, are losing your current certified shares as well as your public safety shares and your economic development shares. So those costs from those ongoing costs from those funds would need to be shifted into general.
Yeah, so shifting into general, this kind of gets into kind of moving dollars around from one fund to another. But, again, kind of getting back to this point, if you look at, and this is still a long ways out, I understand, but 2028, line 36, where we're showing, there's a positive cash flow of $369,000. So for the town of Westville, obviously we haven't gotten to the other funds here, but for the general fund, that's a good, you're essentially more than replacing the amount of lit that's been received into the general fund in the past, if I'm looking at this right. And you're more than making up for the estimated shortfall from SEA 1 and increases in circuit breaker. So for the town, you may not see all that negative impact like other communities are because of the way you're kind of set up with your income tax and your property tax and circuit breakers. So there could be a situation where the town may not need to go the full 1.2% and generate that additional revenue if you don't need to.
Well, I mean, it always depends on you, you have to follow your comprehensive plan as well. When we grow, we're gonna need more services. You know what I'm saying? More town services, all that stuff happens. If you follow your comprehensive plan and the police department grows, it says we need 10 officers someday, we'd be able to afford that. We'd be able to fund that. I mean, so, there's the,
Yeah,
how do you do that?
growth, I mean, that's another element that, is sort of hard to predict too, I mean, as far as.
Oh, so sorry.
And we have, as far as expenses, I think we have, and Adam, you can correct me, but I think we do include like inflationary increases. We're not necessarily building in additional costs for growth, but we are adding in for inflationary,
Okay.
at least be conservative here, so.
Yeah, and then in terms of some of your other revenues, I'll jump back up real quick to the excise taxes, your licensed excise, your commercial vehicle, and your financial institution tax. Those are based, the numbers 25 through 28 are based upon the percentage those were in 24 of your property tax. So those taxes were about 13% of your property tax, so we assumed the same 13% each year of the levies for 25 through 28. We talked about the existing local income tax certified shares and municipal lit. The other items here that I really wanted to hit on, most of them are just the fines and fees, license permits, rental receipts, things of those natures are really just based upon your historical trends there. The transfers in from CCI, Lori, based upon our discussion there, I've continued to assume that whatever you guys assume or take in CCI is transferred into the general fund as you guys have done historically. The new piece here is the payment in lieu of taxes. When you guys did the sewer rate study, Jeff, a while ago, we showed in the revenue requirements there for the sewage works, them funding a payment in lieu of tax to the general fund. And so we built that in 26 through 28 and ongoing from the sewage works. We are not showing anything from the water utility right now, and Jeff will probably talk about that a little bit later. Interest, we're assuming 2% of you guys' beginning balance each year in terms of interest earnings. So that's really it on the operating receipt side of things. In terms of the operating disbursements, 2025 is pulled from your guys' budget that was advertised and adopted at the end of the year with a couple minor adjustments to the line items for personal services based upon your guys' historical spending patterns. We took that down to 80% of your budget because that's where about you guys have been over the last 3 years, or sorry, last 2 years. And same with the other services and charges.
So just to kind of hit on that again, so what you're saying, Adam, is for operating disbursements or the personnel services, we're not assuming that they spend the full budget, we're assuming 80% of their budget.
Yeah, that's correct, that's based, kind of just about your guys' historical trends there. So we did make, for example, any adjustments to supplies in 25, because you guys have been pretty close to the entire budget there in the general fund, so we just left that as is. And then as Jeff mentioned earlier, for 26 through 28, we are taking those 25 baseline numbers and adding in a 3% inflationary allowance each year, just because as time goes on, as you've seen, your costs creep up. So then, all in at the end of the day, after all the receipts and disbursements, we're looking at some spend downs in the general fund in 25 through 27, and as we hit on earlier with that municipal lit, if we assumed it up to the maximum amount, which may or may not be the case, you'd see in 28 a reversal of a positive cash inflow of $370,000 based upon where things sit today. And everything with SEA 1, I mean, there's still some unknowns there and some things that are probably subject to change before we reach that point. So I just want to caveat that a little bit.
Yeah, and the last line down there, maybe just real quick too, on line 42, we're showing what the ending operating balance percentage is, and that's basically if you take your operating expenses and divide it by what your ending cash is, you always want to see that you're kind of at least 50%, kind of around that 50% range, which you're well over that, right? You're at 158% expected in 2025. So you continue to have a good, strong cash position within the general fund. So.
Jeff, I think on the lit for the water, I think that was gonna be phased in when WCC gets up and running, right? Did we figure there?
Yeah, for the sewer?
Yeah, or
Yeah,
for the water.
We haven't figured that in yet.
But that's where we're gonna start the lit for the water.
For the water,
Yeah.
yeah, build that in, into the, kind of the cost of service rate study.
Yep.
And the sewer was 61,000, that's what we had built
Yeah.
into the sewer, which would start, what did we say,
26.
I
next year.
think Ted Summers red flagged that. We enlightened him on it. I
Yeah.
think it-
Yeah, so I think we're still on track there, so, yep. So really, not all that, it's not a doomsday here, obviously with the general fund. You have good, strong cash balances. We're projecting some minor potential shortfalls in, the next couple of years, but nothing to really be super concerned about with respect to your cash. And obviously when you get out into 2028, or when we get out into 2027, then we can make a determination whether it makes sense to implement some of the income tax or all or none of it at that point.
Yeah, but at least you guys have the ability to absorb all your current costs and to the cost shifted from public safety lit and see it as well. On page 9 there, that's just kind of a graphical illustration of the previous page. As Jeff pointed out, the operating balance percentage, you can see the kind of the gray and red lines there are the 15% red line is kind of the minimum we recommend for an operating balance, and a healthy one would be at the 50% gray line. And you guys are well above that even in the line, or even in the years where you're seeing a decrease in fund balance. So I'll kind of just speed run through the rest of these fund because there's really a lot of the information is similar to the general fund. For page 10 for MVH, all the property tax assumptions are the same there. Same with auto excise CVET. The only different piece here really is the MVH distribution that you guys get. Lori, I'm sure you're aware of it. And probably everyone else is here too, but the distribution there is split between a restricted and unrestricted piece. The restricted, half of that distribution has to be used for construction, reconstruction, and paving purposes. which you guys have on your capital plan for 27 and 28, the community crossings project, which that restricted portion would be eligible for. In terms of operating disbursements, personal service and supplies, you guys have tracked really close in terms of actual to budget, so there were no adjustments there. 25 is just your budget as it was presented. Other services and charges, we did adjust that down based upon historical spending there to around 75%. And as I mentioned, the community crossing matching grant is shown on line 18 for 27, 28. That's your local, part of your local match portion, which we'll see that show back up in the local road and bridge community crossing grant match fund. Last piece there, the capital outlays, we're showing some things in 27 and 28 for a tractor in 27 and then a loader in 28, and that's per the.
We already got the loader,
Well,
so
okay.
that's done. Yeah.
Well,
So
good news
MVH,
then.
MVH is probably set for a while. so,
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because yeah, we talked about that earlier there. I guess good news then we're in better shape for
Right.
28.
So we'll note that.
Yeah, I'll make a note here that's already purchased. That's perfect though, because that gets rid of most of that negative balance I was going to point out in the last year.
Right.
We're down to 20,000, which I'll take a negative 20,000 versus
Yeah.
a negative 120. But like general, you guys are well above your even the recommended 50% in each of your years. So even with a spend down in 27, 28 that we had shown for capital, you're still in excess of that. So the MVH funds are also very, very healthy. In terms of LRS, really the only thing we're showing coming in each year is the local road and street distribution, and we flatline that each year based upon the 2025 DLGF estimate. We've just assumed the same for each of the following years. Really, a couple of big things coming out there is a dump truck in 27 and 28, and then that was that same loader in 28, so I can mark off that part of that won't be coming out that year either, or out of that fund either. And once again, you guys are well above that 50% operating balance. That's another healthy fund there. The next one here is parks. Lines 1 through 6 are same assumptions that we've used throughout for NVH and in general, no changes there. In terms of park receipts, we've just based that on a historical average of 23 and 24. In terms of operating disbursements, once again, we've adjusted supplies down based upon budget spending to other services and charges. We've left at the budget amount. This fund, we're seeing some decreases each year there, but once again, if we turn to page 15, you can see you're still above the 50% balance. As we get out in those future years, we may consider possibly shifting some levy to park if it continues to trend down, but as of right now, for 25 and 26, you're still in excess of where you need to be. So page 16 here, the lit public safety, this is really the first curveball here. As we mentioned earlier, the public safety lit is going away in 28, which is why you'll see that being zeroed out there. We've assumed 25 based upon the DLGF estimate, and then 26 and 27, like in the general fund, we've adjusted that upward based upon your guys' growth in income tax over the last 5 years. And if we look in terms of the operating disbursements, like the other funds, we made some budget adjustments for personal services and other services and charges in 25, and then assumed inflationary increases in 26 and 27. And as mentioned earlier, in 28, we've assumed all those recurring personal services, supplies, and other services and charges are moved into general because of the elimination of the public safety lit. We have left some capital outlays in there just to spend down the fund You also would have the option to, after you're no longer receiving income tax, you could always, declare it a dormant fund and transfer the fund balance that way as well.
The PS lit fund?
But yeah, for right now, we just left the balance in there and assumed it would be used for, capital needs that would pop up. This one, the graph on page 17 is somewhat misleading. I mean, we're showing you, fall below those operating balances, but really that's an intent to spend down that fund, since we know long-term we're shifting the ongoing expenses away from.
So if the PS lit fund is going away,
Well,
And that-
the source of revenue is going away. Right?
that's what I mean, the source, okay. I have a question. This may not make sense, but didn't we just adopt the rate for that? Like, the PS lit, when was that, like 2 years ago? So now everybody has that, pays that extra tax, that local income tax for public safety. Is that revenue, that's just gonna go to the general fund? I need to make,
Well,
I need to
that-
understand how that's gonna
That,
work.
your certified shares that you have right now, that the economic development one and the public safety
Yep.
one are all, as Jeff mentioned, pass-throughs from the county right now.
Yes.
So those would all be eliminated, and then going forward in 28 is when you guys have the ability to,
So that tax, people would not see that, and that tax come out of their income, like, so what was that, came up to like X amount per year out of your checks, did you guys, anybody notice that, cause I did, but, so that will no longer.
That will go away. So theoretically,
So,
if we put in our own tax, income tax, that Bill was talking about, theoretically, that could be lower than what people are paying now, that the county
Could be.
disperses.
Yeah.
But we would just get it directly, which would be
Right,
awesome.
no middleman.
Right.
so that does nothing for the public safety then?
So, what do you mean? Because
I mean, like, so the whole point of the public safety, when they adopted that or whatever, it was to help fund public safety.
Right.
So what happens now if that's going,
So those expenses, so you're still gonna have those expenses.
We
So
are.
Those would be paid going forward after 2027. Those expenses would then be budgeted out of
The
general
general
fund. Yeah, and that's where you would collect your new, if you need it, your new income tax, which will go into the general fund. You'll no longer be receiving any of that revenue starting in
Mhm.
2028 from the county.
So what percentage are we paying? So we're paying, let's say we're paying, as people live in town, let's say we're paying 2% tax. It's quite possible that the people that live in town that are paying that tax aren't getting that 2%. It's not passed through. It's getting, the county is gonna skim some off of that.
County's collecting it, yep, and then they're distributing that to the other units.
So they're taking some too.
Yep, and they're distributing that, remind me, Adam, was it based on, is it based on population?
I thought it was population right now, but
Yeah.
their calculations on that are kind of murky. That's one of the things we've been trying to, request from them, or more specific data on how all their calculations currently work. We know how it'll work going forward for you guys above 3,500, but yeah, as of all the inner workings right now, it's a little bit nebulous, and that's one of the things we've been requesting from them.
So we would be cutting out that one.
Yeah, and it's gonna be challenging too, I have to figure it out between now and then to figure out, okay, because at the county level, what they're gonna have to start tracking is where do you live? And you have to apply that tax to only the residents within the town. And track it that way versus, okay, we're gonna collect income taxes from the whole county and then we're gonna give it to the town of Westville just based on population or whatever it is they're currently using. So it's gonna be a different system in place to make sure that that tax is only being applied to the individuals living in the town. And then you gotta figure out, okay, let's say they work in southern Michigan. you gotta collect that. You gotta figure out a way to collect that, income tax from those businesses. So they're gonna have to withhold it and then remit that to.
What about someone that doesn't live in Westville but works in Westville?
It would only be the residents businesses in Westville would have to, if someone else lives outside, but someone works here, then those businesses would have to figure out what that is and collect for wherever they live, wherever it is, whatever town, if they live in a town. If they live out in the county, it would just be the county's income tax rate.
That's gonna be like figuring fuel tax with a semi that drives through 5 different states.
5 different states, it's gonna be a little confusing, yeah. Yep.
On page 18, that's just your ARP funds. You guys have spent that down, so there's really nothing to talk through there. CCI, as I mentioned earlier, on page 19, you guys just currently transfer money to general fund each year, and we've just assumed that you guys continue to do that. 25 is based upon DLGF estimates, and we've just flatlined it and assumed each year you guys keep transferring that.
Is that something we should be doing? It's just what they've done historically?
Yeah,
Is that something that's?
Yeah, it's totally fine to do. I talked to Todd Caldwell in our office, who used to work for the state, and we pulled the state statute, or we pulled the statute, and that's, entirely permissible. You're fine to keep doing it that way.
But is that something we should be doing, as far as, could CCI be used for something else?
The other thing I see it used for, and correct me, Jeff, if you've seen it for other purposes, but usually the other use I've seen it for is kind of just to stockpile for capital needs primarily.
You can use it for any legal purpose, so it could be for really whatever you want to use it for, or it could be used to continue to supplement general fund. CCD and CCI you can really use for any legal purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, most of the places when I've worked, though, they tend to.
Just not anything illegal.
Because I think we're paying this building. Is this building paid off?
No, 28.
Okay. Because that's,
The fir- I think
that's,
it's the first half of 28.
General fund?
The payments get paid out of seated.
I think that's it, yeah.
Oh, see it?
Yep.
Yeah, we have, in one of the appendices, the amortization for that too, included here. CCD, you guys just have some recurring under service and charges that pop up there, whether we just assume continue, and then a handful of different capital outlay needs. But we, even with your guys' capital, we expect that to continue to grow based upon the current plan. And then as we were talking about on page 22 with CDET, that's what you see the building loan showing
Debt service.
under debt service on line 8. And we actually, Jeff and I were discussing on that, you guys may want to consider potentially based upon the liquidity of your reserves, an earlier repayment or advanced repayment on that loan.
I'm sorry, you're in the CCD fund?
Yep, sorry,
I'm sorry,
I spanned, or excuse
No,
me
you're
on
fine.
that. Page 22, I'm looking at line 8, the debt service for your building. Jeff and I were talking about earlier, you guys actually might want to consider paying off that loan earlier to avoid paying the full amount of interest on it.
Yeah, if you go back to A2, we're kind of skipping around here, but you turn a few pages back to appendix 2, A2, there's the amortization of the police building loan. So currently you still owe about $174,000 in principal. The interest rate you're paying is 3.86%, so it's not a crazy high rate by any means, but I'm not sure what you're earning on your investments or cap right now, but if you were earning something less than that, you could consider, if you wanted to, you could pay off if they allow you to pay it off early, I assume they would.
Yep.
You could pay it off and you could save, what,
Right.
I don't know, few $1,000s, so it's not a ton of money, but you can save a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah. And that, fund we're showing, part of the tractor as well that we showed earlier in DH. On page 23, you can see like, public safety lit because of the fact that, there's not gonna be income tax received in there anymore. They, just kind of spend down of the existing cash. Uh, 24, I'll skip through, that's just your community crossing grant match. And then the last one here is your trash and garbage pickup. So that's just based upon your current customer account and their current monthly bill. So right now, I think Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it goes through, I think your bill right now, oh yeah.
Our contract?
Goes through, yeah, your contract goes through 26. So right now for 27 and 28, we just assumed increases based upon how it jumped in over the last couple of years there. So I know I ran through everything.
So maybe just real quick on that,
Yeah.
just to note, and if your contract goes up approximately the same as it did before, then you might want to consider a small bump in your trash and garbage pickup fee. You'll see in 27, 28, on line 11, there's some shortfalls there.
Yeah, I assume we'd have to raise our rates. I definitely gonna have to raise our rates. in
Yeah,
trash.
yeah, and so I think down below, we show sort of an illustration of what, you know, what that bill might go up to.
Right, okay.
If you decide to adjust, so.
Well, yeah.
Thanks, Jeff. So then if we look at A1, that's just the capital plan we talked to earlier. It sounds like, Lori, that there might be some adjustments to that. So if you want to look through that listing in a little bit more detail and get back to me later. I know we talked about.
I would like to actually cover it now because I have both department heads here, so.
Oh, yeah, if you guys want to go through this now.
I do.
I have, look at the list I have. It's on page 8 in the back. So yeah, we can run through that now and take off or add to it as needed. The first item on there was just tasers for $5,000 a year. Are we still good with that?
I assume by the time we have to re-up or upgrade everything to that, it'll probably increase a little bit, but I don't know. What. These tasers should probably last us a good 3-4 years without any kind of issue, with the exception of battery replacements.
So were you thinking just a couple hundred, 1,000, like how big of a?
I wouldn't foresee it being any more than $6,000 as opposed to 5. It should be well within that $1,000 mark.
And are we looking, when we bump it up starting next year, or do you want me to go out and wait a couple of years?
So we should have, we should be locked in on that for either until 20, I want to say 2027. We should be locked into the $5,000.
Okay, so just for 28 then. What about, the body cameras, are we still decent at $6,000 for 27 and 28?
Yes.
The radios for next year?
So I know we had planned kind of big all at once. I foresee, so there's a bunch of stuff going on with Motorola now. The Motorola radios for the portables are, I think we're between $8,000 and $10,000 a piece. And there's a couple radios that we have that are getting phased out, so I would at least want one
We had,
The 45 is not too far off, but I don't
Okay.
think it would be necessary all at once in 26.
okay, so we could spread that over a couple of years, you're saying.
And we could probably even go as far as like 10 grand a year, maybe 10 grand every other year.
And you said the portable, we're looking at closer to 10K for 26 and 27 then?
Yep.
What about the police vehicle in 27 for 70,000?
I think we're a lot better off than what we assumed we were going to be. The next one in line that would probably need replacement would be the F-150. And we just had a transmission redone on that. That's in great shape, so we should at least get another 3-4 years out of that.
Knock on wood.
I'd say F-150.
So do we want to leave that on in 28 or take it out?
I'd say vehicle-wise, we could probably push back to 28.
Okay. And the 70,000 you think is still in the
I think
range of?
that's still pretty close, yeah.
Okay. What about the server upgrades for 20K and 26?
So that was gonna be significantly less than what we thought it was, right? I think you
Yeah,
said
Mark did
something
say
to
that.
Mark, and like, we're only looking at like
Mhm.
3 or 4 grand, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't as much as we anticipated.
That's not really I imagine 27, probably a good ballpark.
Yeah.
We may wind up having to do it a little sooner, but
Maybe,
it's not gonna be anywhere near the 70,000 that we were.
The 20s.
maybe like 5 grand, I
Yeah.
think would cover it.
Mhm.
Yeah, then I think there was a little bit of talk about even merging to where we had one
Right.
server together, right? So that's a possibility also, just because we don't have the usage to justify the massive servers
Yeah,
that we currently have.
so 5 is probably the number.
I always like hearing things trending down. I don't see that very often.
Yeah.
So down's always at least in terms of capital cost.
Right.
Up in terms of fund balance, down in terms of cost.
Yeah, so I mean, I would say for server wise, I would move that over. Let's see, I lost my place of where it was at.
It was in 26, so back to
Yeah,
27.
so I would leave it probably in 26, with a chance that we may have to do that this year if something were to go wrong. I mean, it's electronics, but I don't think it's gonna be an issue too much.
Okay, jump into streets. I guess, is there anything, I guess before I move to streets, is there anything else on that I don't have on here that we should have on here?
No, I think that pretty much covers everything. The only other stuff is wish list stuff that's down the road, so. No, that's all.
Jumping over streets, and the first thing we had on here was the community crossing, project of 300,000 for 27 and 28. Are we still in that range?
What's the water project?
Well,
like?
a lot of it's gonna come down to the water project, because if we have to dig up a street for mains, we're not gonna use community, it'll be the water project that'll pay.
Okay.
And we don't wanna pave a street and then have to,
Yeah, and then rip it off.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes,
Bubba might even get a little mad if we dug up a new street, but, yeah, so that's kinda on hold, what we're gonna do, because we still have some questions on how we're gonna route lines.
so you want me to drop that from 27 then and keep it 28 timing wise, or?
Well, it's already 20, I don't know.
Maybe we ought to keep it right there, because by then we'll know more what we're gonna do, where we're gonna run and where we aren't.
Okay.
We got a couple projects. We have a project, the correctional facility, and we're also on some of the taps on lead, not lead pipes, but lead fittings.
Oh, the line replacement?
Yeah,
But, yeah.
it's at the tap.
With the goosenecks?
Yeah, it's goosenecks.
Mhm.
So it's not main.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll leave that where it's at then. What about where are we looking for the 92 dump truck and 95 service truck.
They're good.
Those are good still?
Yep.
And the case tractor, we had 180K total, is that still good for 27?
I think that's gonna be good till 28. Now,
And then I heard the loader, we're good, we already got, so I can take that one off,
I'll
right?
take that off, yeah.
Was that just paid for in 25? Or when was that actually paid for?
Was it this year?
Mhm.
Was it the end of 24?
End of, was it end of 24?
I thought it was early 25.
It was like recently, either the end of 24 or the beginning of this year, I can't remember when we paid for that.
Yeah, it's been within the year, I mean,
What's that, the loader?
6 months or 8 months.
Loader, no, we got it this year.
Could be the beginning of the year.
We got this.
So we can move that, if you can give us the cost, was it 180? Do you know?
No, it was 103?
103.
So we can move that, change it to 103, and then we can move it to 25, if you think that's when you actually need.
It is.
Yeah.
We got it.
Okay.
And then sidewalk repairs, we had 17,000 a year out of CCD.
Can that go bigger or stay the same, or can we go raise that?
You guys were, yeah, there's a positive cash, or positive fund balance trend in CCD, so I think we could bump that up a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like we were showing a cash, kind of, it's not profit, but cash increase every year of around $8,000, $7 to $8,000. So if you wanted to just break even every year in CCD, you could spend $7,000 or $8,000 more out of paving if you felt like you needed it.
Good, do that, Bub. Because, yeah, price of materials have gone up, it's gonna cost
Yeah.
more to put in a
Maybe say like.
100-foot.
So if we were at another 7, we'd be at like 24,000, 25,000.
Yeah, that's what we're looking at, 25.
25? Yeah, we can plug it in.
And anything else for streets or any other
The only thing
department?
that we're looking for streets that we're gonna need is probably replace a lawnmower, but that's going between the parks and the streets. I would say good till 27,
And do you have an estimate of cost for that?
between 15 and 20 grand.
You said splitting that between streets and.
It's usually parks, streets split it.
We go 50-50 on that, or 75-25, or
Depends what
just
parks-
depends what the
depends what
fund
parks are
is,
looking like.
okay.
Parks was a little, I think, a little bit.
Yeah, parks we were,
Yeah.
we were already looking at a bit of a decrease
Mhm.
each year there.
So we can figure the amount on improvement for the streets, but if we can take some out of parks, we can at the time.
Like 50-50 or 75-20, whatever I don't think it's gonna make a material difference, either way, but.
Yeah. If it's 20, it's only $5 grand coming out of, 75-25.
75-25 split.
Yeah.
It's probably best, parks isn't gonna, I don't see it getting any better. I mean, unless we levy, shift the levy in that.
Shifts the levy.
Put a user fee on the pickleball courts, that's all profit.
Parking meters in front of it.
I like the way you think.
So yeah, 75-25, probably better.
All right.
Feed the pickle meter. That's it for capital for the streets.
Capital.
For streets.
Okay. You're good, Bubba? Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate the
Thank you.
updates
Yeah.
there.
If I'll make those
Appreciate all you
updates.
do.
Anything else for any other department that you think we need on there?
I have, no.
I-
Were you gonna do wastewater and that?
Yep, we'll get, yeah.
Those-
I'll-
yeah, they have a
I'll-
separate plan.
Yeah, I got a list for you.
Why don't we just transition to that?
Yes, sorry, I'm a bit long-winded.
Oh, no,
there.
it's
Oh,
fine.
no.
It's,
That's why we're here.
well, actually, I'm sorry, I don't wanna jump ahead, I don't wanna ask fire department contract. I'm only asking because, you know, we have 3 years set up with them, so this year was 92,000, next year is 94,000, following year is 96,000. That's a lot to be able to, I mean, I don't wanna say this, I don't know with the changes that's happening with this property tax thing, how's that going to look for after 27 to fund them? Like,
Remind me, is this a fire territory?
no,
This is what,
volunteer fire
Just
department.
Just
contracted, you know,
okay, in the town, and then who else is a party to?
the
that?
township.
Township?
They get money from the township and us.
And you guys, okay. So,
We did invite them, or I invited the trustee and the board member, but they couldn't come tonight.
so how's that gonna impact, I mean,
I mean, because we know that's like, that's a lot of money coming out of the general fund. And I know we talked about the hydrant fee that the general fund has now, the 31.5 that I pay the water, you know, for the hydrant rental. I know there was talk about implementing a
Well, we're-
higher hydrant fee
Yeah,
on the water bill.
yeah, that's really separate and distinct from kind of the fire contract.
Right, but that would free up, wouldn't that free up that 31.5 in the general fund? So,
Yeah.
do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, if you, so, couple things, so on the public fire protection, public hydrant rental, what you can do is, you can eliminate from having the general fund pay it, and you can put it on your utility bills of the customer, so you're taking it off the property tax bill or the budget, and then you're adding it to the utility bill. So that, I mean, that's an option.
What are other
That
options?
obviously results in a rate increase to the, the water customers, but,
Right.
it's something that you can consider doing.
What other options are there? I mean, I'm just worried about funding that as after
The
27.
92,000 or
Well,
whatever it is.
if it goes up, I mean, I don't.
Well, we've got that, if we go back to the general fund,
Mm-hmm,
cash flow, let's
mm-hmm,
look at that, that's on page 8.
mm-hmm.
I'm looking for, where is that expenditure? Service charges.
Oh, that's for the,
Line 30, okay. So,
oh, I see.
we're showing that, based, again, this can all change, but based on the assumptions so far, you're looking at a shortfall in 25, 26, and 27 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens in 28 and how you pay for that contract going forward, I think is probably, a lot of that's gonna depend on whether you implement a income tax or not. Because without implementing an income tax, you'll see shortfalls again, within the general fund. But a lot of things can change between now and then, including the legislation, so.
Because wasn't the legislature, weren't they disbanding fire protection districts? There was something in the legislation about fire protection districts.
I don't think they've banned them. They are limiting the tax that can be levied by fire territories and fire districts. And we may have had that in our.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up the numbers.
So it'd be the equivalent in town where you'd have a fire protection district in town, it would be kind of like people live in the county, in the township that are paying it's a rate, the fire department, the fire rate.
Yep.
For the people in unincorporated areas.
Yeah, for like a fire territory, that might include, it could include a lot of times a township, a town, could include a couple townships, and then you kind of go in together and you levy a tax rate, fire territory rate, and then you all kind of share in the expense. I don't know if that's kind of
And
the
that's,
route you're thinking.
and that's what, and that's what's getting limited for new fire territories established after December 31st, 2024. It's limited to 40 cents per $100 of assessed value.
Is it legal just to put, like, on our water bill, we're talking about like a fire, a hydrant charge, to offset that cost of the fire department? In just the name of transparency, could we put on our water bill fire department surcharge, so people knew, because everybody that's served by our water department is also served by our fire department. And so that would be just obvious how much of your taxes are paying for that service. So as that continues to go up, if people are unhappy about it, they see clearly, you know, how much of their taxes are going to the fire department, you know, just right out there in the open.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I've never seen that, and I think maybe the reason why I've not seen that added to a utility bill is generally your water rates and charges have to be cost-based. And I think what we're talking about here is that that's an expenditure that's not paid by the water utility, it's paid by the general fund.
I see.
So I think that's where we're
I see,
getting it.
that makes
Yep.
sense.
Now, we are looking at adding a payment in lieu of taxes, which kind of in a way, in a roundabout way, we would kind of be doing that if we implement a payment in lieu of taxes that where the water utility would pay a certain amount to the general fund.
And that would help,
That would
cover
help.
that contract,
That would help.
but
Yep.
when does that, you know, we don't know when that water's gonna.
What's
Well,
the,
you
what's
can-
the,
You can implement a payment with tax, we don't have to wait for the project, you
You
can
just do it, yeah.
just do it. It's assuming that your water utility can afford it, and if they can't
Right.
afford it, then you'd have to
yeah, we're getting some
include a charge like that. or
We
increase
may be able to afford that, we are
water
getting
rates.
some unanticipated revenue through the water from the prison, having used water sooner than
Right,
they thought,
yeah,
but,
they're, yeah, not under the
yeah.
bulk rate.
right.
I mean, I just want to worry about us being able to fund what they are requesting next contract from the general fund solely.
Yeah. So it could be a combination of, implementing that payment in lieu of tax from the water utility, which would be worked into the rates, and or a combination of that and maybe income tax.
I mean, we currently have 41.5 budgeted every year for that contract with them. So making up that difference to whatever their next contractual amount's going to be is the part I'm wondering how we do that. I mean, I think as it is now, I have to take the difference out of seated this year. I think is where we decided to come up with that difference, but I honestly don't know moving forward where the difference is going to come from.
Yeah, I guess it could be, well, we could look into that. You're talking about 2028, right?
Yes, so we can get creative for the next 2 years too.
Yeah. So,
So- I'm just worried about that.
yep, yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now, the way we're showing it is it just continues to be paid out of the general fund. And there,
Yeah.
like you said, there's some marginal shortfalls there until you get out to 2028. And it would be larger shortfall, but then you have if you decide to implement a tax rate, you have the ability to do that
Okay.
and help pay for it. But
I mean, this whole thing's gonna, the property tax thing's gonna affect the township revenue as well.
if
Am I-
townships continue to exist. 'cause
I know,
the
I
state
just
is-
met with our trustee
Yeah.
today,
Yeah,
you know, so that's gonna affect them too, and they also fund, the fire department, so I'm just,
Yeah, because there's talk of the county would take it over, the
Yeah.
townships, which the county has enough trouble with the county, let alone
Run it
going
again.
one step of government from that.
I mean, the fire department's important, obviously, so I wanna be able to help them, but at the same time, we have a town to run, so we have to fund our own, so I'm just putting that out there.
yep,
Yeah, it's
So,
legitimate.
valid concern. Okay. So I think where we left off, we're gonna transition to wastewater and utilities.
I have a wish list from our operator, from Nathan Howell.
For wastewater?
For wastewater.
Okay, let's go ahead then and we can talk through that. If we go to page S9, where we kind of had everything listed out based on the information that's provided to us so far. We can go through those and make changes if needed.
Oh, okay.
We've got clean and televised sewer lines, looks like every other year for 100,000.
He didn't remember that.
Okay, yeah, he's got the lift stations at McDonald's and New Durham, and those are on there.
Okay.
Okay.
And what do those come to? That's 450, right, for the two of them?
Wait a minute, New Durham says it's this year.
Yeah, New Durham this year and then McDonald's next year.
Yeah.
Is 225 for both lift stations at New Durham?
Well, when I'm looking here, okay, on the wish list he gave me, we've got Colder Road, the
That's,
force main replacements, we probably leave that because, the list he gave me was redo the lift stations at Colder Road and Westville Estates, those are on there. Replace the force main, that's on there. He's got Colder Road and Westville Estates, those are listed. The generator at Nash Finch.
which would technically be Dollar General, but I don't see.
Right, I don't see that on there.
So we have to add
What was
that.
that
And he's-
again?
The generator at Dollar General Distribution Center.
Backup generator at the lift station,
Okay.
like a Generac, a big diesel one. But he estimated for all that, for the list he gave, which also has everything listed here, plus the generator he said 650K.
Which seems a little low if you look at the individual.
Yeah,
ones.
so maybe we've got enough
Mhm, but-
padding in there,
Mhm.
so, let's keep the numbers the way they are,
Okay.
and they might be a little high, if you total them up
With what he, yeah.
with what he's given us,
Mhm.
so, let's,
Plus, some of those are out a ways.
yeah.
Right,
So, well, I figured, he gave me 650,000 as the ballpark, and I figure if we go out over 5 years, the expenditure is gonna average 130,000 a year, which, that's a lot of things to do in 5 years. A lot of,
well, yeah, we have McDonald's and Westville Estates listed for next year, that's $525,000.
yeah.
I don't know that that's gonna work.
So here, can I interject something?
Sure.
Because this may play into this conversation regarding timing.
Okay.
When we first plugged all these numbers in, and we assumed that they would all just be cash funded on a pay-as-you-go basis every year, right? So you'd have enough money coming in between that and your cash, you could just pay for them. When we did that, we were coming up with resulting in sizable rate increases.
Mhm.
We just can't afford to spend that much per year.
Right.
Right.
So what we did, and obviously we can modify this approach, but we assumed that if you have to do those, and it sounds like the amounts might be high, then what we would look at or recommend is maybe doing, you could either raise rates. If you don't wanna raise rates, we could look at doing a bond issue, do all the pay for all the projects, large projects within one bond issue, and you could eliminate the need for a rate adjustment, at least for a couple of years.
And you're getting it all done at once, and you're not worried about pricing going out over the years.
Right, you kind of do it all at once, and you can get it done within the actual work within probably a couple of years, I assume, if you can do all that within a couple of
And,
years.
and your cost could be lower because if someone has to mobilize for certain things, they're already here
Doing
for
it all at one time.
once for mobilization.
Yeah.
And that might even be, okay. So we'll have to get with Nathan and go over the numbers that are on here on the budget and over what he gave us and
I'm just a little concerned with revenue and sewage operating. I don't, actually Nathan and I are both a little concerned with revenue and sewage operating. I don't think the operational costs were anticipated to be as high as they are, as high as they're coming in. We're seeing they're astronomical, these costs.
Okay.
So
So
I don't,
we can go to, well, this might be we can come back to the capital, but,
Okay.
if you go to
Yeah.
the cash flows. Let's see. If you go back to page, well, can we start on S1 real quick?
Yeah.
Okay, because I kind of skipped over this,
Yeah,
but
sure.
S1 are your current fund balances, well, current, that was as of the end of last year. So you had 1,672,000. The minimum balances required and recommended total almost 1.4. So you're in okay cash position as of the end of the year. You had about $274,000 above those minimum reserve requirements. So not super great, but okay, but you still had enough, I don't know where you're at now, but you had enough cash to be able to meet all your reserve
Mhm.
requirements, okay?
Okay.
Now, in terms of revenues and expenses and what that looks like year over year, you turn to page S2, and this gets really small, I should have brought my glasses. Have to pull it away. So for 2024, you brought in, this is actual, so, well, we can look at 23 too, but let's just look at 2024. You brought in,
Yeah.
bottom line 41, you had a cash inflow of $493,000. Now, starting in 2025, we're estimating revenues of $2,052,000.
Yep.
Total operating expenses of just over 900,000. And then down below, we have interest income and your debt service payments and some capital. So we're showing actually a positive cash flow of 138,000. Now, all of these things, so we're looking good here, but this is assuming that you issue a bond. So just from a operating standpoint, what we're seeing, again, we can go through these numbers with you in more detail, make sure we're not missing anything, but it appears that you're collecting the revenue you need to collect to pay your operating expenses and your debt service. Where you would run short is with your capital improvement plan. If you really need to do all those projects at the costs that were estimated and you're cash flowing them, that's where we would need to be, looking to either do a rate increase or issue a bond.
So basically what it would be is like if you were gonna buy a new car or a truck, let's say $75,000 for a pickup. You would either take 75 grand out of your checkbook today and pay for it, or get a 7-year loan on it, which would the bond issue would be.
Exactly.
And then you have more you're paying interest, but you have cash flow, more
Yep.
cash flow.
Yep. Right.
What do bond payment, and what does repayments look like on, I don't know.
Interest rate, I mean, it depends, if we were just go out and float a bond on our own in the town, interest rates would probably be somewhere in the 5% range. Tax exempt, could be lower, somewhere in that, probably 4 to 5%, probably closer to 4.5 to 5% range is kind of where we would be at.
So if we did that, you're saying we would, make sure I understand this, we would have enough to make those bond payments?
Yeah, so if you look at line 35, you see
Right there,
debt
what you
service
got.
proposed.
I have that, this is like, okay, got it, yep.
So if you go over there, we assumed a bond payment, assuming that like a $2 million bond, $171,000 per year would be your payment
Okay,
total. So, and we're showing that you have sufficient revenues to be able to meet those payments until you get out to about 2028. And then we're assuming like a small 3% increase to keep up with inflation and other things. So yeah, looks like you could afford a bond payment based on the $2.14 million bond issue without the need to adjust rates.
And
We
that's
wouldn't need
that's
to.
a huge bond
We
issue.
wouldn't
I
need
mean,
that much.
that's more than what we
And
need.
that's
Right.
based on these higher amounts, you may not even need
Right.
that much. you'd have enough capacity, what we're seeing today, where you'd have enough capacity in your revenues and your rates to be able to support, about that side of the issue.
Which it could be 750,000.
Really?
I mean,
No.
It could be a bond issue lower than that.
Yeah.
Now, the reason the bond issues, municipal bonds, or the rate is lower because the person that's loaning you the money won't pay taxes on the interest.
On the interest, right, tax exempt, yeah.
Okay. I will, that kind of goes along with my question, you know how we do the, maintenance funds? The water and sewer maintenance funds, and we do the 5% every month? You know, I'm just talking about 5% of the revenue.
Your revenues?
Yeah, we move that into the water and sewer maintenance funds.
Yeah, so that's not a requirement.
That's what I mean.
I know that's what you've done, yeah, it's not a requirement.
It's not in anything written in a bond where we have to do that, okay.
No,
That's just,
That's kind of our savings,
that's just
kind of our-
internal.
that's just what I think you've been doing over time. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So the way the cash flows work when you have debt outstanding, per the bond ordinance,
Mhm.
is you kind of think of this as buckets. So, think of it like a fountain and a bucket. First bucket is your operation and maintenance fund. So all your revenues go into there,
Mhm.
right? Once you, at the end of each month, what you're required to keep in there is 2 months' worth of your operating
Right.
expenses,
Okay.
okay? Once you've met that, then what happens is it kind of overflows, and anything above that 2 month goes into your bond and interest account, which is 1/6 of your next bond payment, right? That's what you send to Boney.
Yep.
Once you've met that, it goes down into your debt service reserve. That's number 3, and then after you've met all 3 of those requirements, everything else above and beyond that can go to the improvement fund,
I
or your
see.
maintenance fund.
Okay,
So it's not really based on 5%,
I
it's
got
just
ya.
based on how much you're collecting and what you have to set in
I
those
see.
other reserves.
okay. We just picked the 5%, you guys must have just picked the 5% a long time ago
Yep.
to do that, okay.
Yeah.
Because we can utilize those
We do
funds a little bit
numbers.
more.
Yeah, and you can always transfer those funds back to operating
Okay.
if you need it. It's not
I
like
mean-
it has to stay in the improvement fund or maintenance fund. You can always transfer back and forth.
Okay, I mean, that's good to know, 'cause
Yeah.
they're pretty healthy, so it's
Yeah,
not like
well,
we're
I
putting
think the
new-
reason we did that was before, like, we expanded, like, for example, the sewer, we did the same thing on sewer, right?
Yeah, we have a
Yeah.
fund for each one.
Where we've got improvements on there, we're not spending as much as we would be if it was the old sewage plant or even the old new plant we have.
Mhm.
We've taken care of a bunch of this stuff because of the bond issue, or the loan, or whatever.
Right.
I mean, is that something we should keep doing? Is the doing that every year, 5% into the improvement fund?
If we go back to S1. So you can kind of see where you're overfunded and where you're underfunded. So if you look to the far right, the variance column,
Yep.
in your operating fund at the end of each month, when you're doing your bank recs and everything before you close out the month,
Mhm.
all you have to maintain in your operating fund is $152,000
Mhm.
every month.
Yep.
If you're over that, which you were at the end of the year, you were $309,000 over that, you could transfer all of that down to the maintenance fund and keep in your maintenance fund. So the way this works is, you get to the end of the month, you look at your operating fund balance, when you've entered all your transactions, and if you have more than $152,000 in there, you can transfer that overage to your improvement fund. If you have less than 152, you do a transfer from
From the
maintenance
yeah.
back to operating, and so you're always maintaining just $152,000 in that fund at the end of each month. That's typically how you're supposed to do it according to the bond ordinance. So it has nothing to do with like transferring 5% or anything like that. It's just you're focused on what that minimum reserve
Mhm.
balance is at the end of each month. So you were overfunded in your operating fund by $309,000 at the end of the year. That can go to the maintenance fund.
Mhm.
You were overfunded in your bond and interest account by $13,000. You were overfunded in your debt service reserve account by $36,000. but you were underfunded in your maintenance fund by about 84,000. And that's because we always recommend that you keep 1 year's worth of your capital spending plan sitting in your maintenance fund at all times, so that you make sure you have the money there. That's not a requirement of the bond ordinance, but that's just industry best practice, that you always have enough money to do your capital
Sure.
purchases for the year. So that's kind of how those funds typically are supposed to work.
Okay.
So back to your question, should you keep transferring the 5%? You can. I mean, you're still overfunded in your operating fund, so if you wanted to keep transferring that, or you could transfer even more than that if you wanted, to target, reserve in your maintenance fund equal to that 220,000.
Mhm. Okay. Think about that, wow, 'cause that's interesting. You said so the B&I and the DSR, how they're overfunded, is that because of the interest, or those dividends we get?
It's likely interest, yeah, that's probably what it is, and that's not unusual. I wouldn't be too concerned, about the reserve, debt service reserve, because you still have to fund that.
Mhm. Right.
And it'll be fully funded by the end of 2026.
Mhm.
Now, when you get, and we'll keep an eye on this next year too, but when you get to that point, if you're still overfunded in the reserve, what we would suggest is you reach out to SRF, Bank of New York, and say, hey, we have $36,000 more in there than what we need. We wanna transfer that back to our checking account here, and use it for
Like back in
operating.
our operating, okay.
Yeah.
Because we didn't even know we were supposed to get any dividend, they said we wouldn't get those, well, we've been getting them for like,
Yeah,
obviously ever, okay.
yeah, because you have a good amount of money sitting here,
Mhm.
so you should be getting interest,
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
very good.
So yeah, I guess back to S2 then for sewage, maybe that's the thought. You couldn't do it, well, here's a couple things we could look at. If you want to give us more accurate estimates for those projects, if we think it's going to be a lot less, we could modify this and see if you can actually do it without issuing a bond.
Okay, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because
Nathan just
otherwise,
shot some off the hip today.
and it's expensive to do a bond, and
I
so
know.
if you really need to do it, you can do it, but if you can cash fund it,
Right.
it's probably a better way to do it.
And I think that's not out of the question, that's a possibility.
Yeah, because these are already on here.
So we can just talk to Nathan and maybe get some better numbers.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe do that, yeah, if you can get us some better numbers that maybe reflect closer to what it's actually gonna cost, we'll plug those in and kind of see how things play out on cash flow.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's really kind of it on sewer. On water. On W1, this is the
Oh,
comparison of the, analysis of your cash position again here. So you have about $2.2 million at the end of 2024. Your minimum balance reserves should be at about 1.6 in the middle column there. So you're in good shape. You've got $583,000 above and beyond what those minimum reserve balances are. So good, strong cash position there. And again, that flow of funds works the same as we talked about
Yep.
for sewer, no difference there.
okay.
Now on W2, the big thing here is we've not added the correctional facility project to this because we still don't know exactly what it's gonna cost. We don't have the interlocal contract nailed down with the state. There's so many unknowns. We didn't add that in. So what we did is we just looked at, okay, your current operations, your current expenses, not assuming that WCC is coming in. We know they are at some point.
Right.
And it looks fairly bleak. So I don't know how reliable this is unless the WCC project for some reason goes away, I don't know why it would, we know it's moving forward. But without WCC, we would be looking at pretty significant rate increases on the water side.
Oh, wow.
So it sounds like maybe that's not a surprise. Based on the capital needs, based on just the trend in operating expenses going up and so forth, you know, we would be looking at pretty significant, rate increases, I think. And that's sort of reflective of what we saw in 23, you know, in 2023 there, you know, we spent $182,000 more than what we brought in,
Yep.
so that's an indication. In 2024, we show a positive cash flow on line 39 of 1.482 million, but that's misleading because you had significant amount of reimbursements coming in, miscellaneous revenue, you had band proceeds, all those things are non-recurring. If you zero those out, you would have had a shortfall of $187,000. So kind of can see this coming without the WCC project, that, you know, you'd be looking at fairly significant increases. So the question is, can we continue to operate like this without needing to increase rates before WCC actually connects and you start generating revenue from them? I think that's the question.
Right.
Go ahead.
What we're gonna collect just on what the powerhouse, whatever. I mean, I don't know, between now and the end of this year, like
What's it been a month?
yeah, I haven't even, I think this was our first bill.
Cause it's been
This was-
like 30,000 gallons a day.
Yeah, I think they got billed for 740,000 gallons this month.
So you said the powerhouse?
Yeah, what it is, they've ran one line out there, one main.
Okay, yeah.
And what was gonna happen was, you have a mile of water main that's not moving. They were gonna have to flush it periodically, because if not, that water gets stagnant, you know, it loses the chlorine in it and everything. So they're gonna put it up into the water tower, you know, to keep it, which would have been very expensive for valving and stuff. Well, their iron filter at the powerhouse to treat the boiler water was bad. So somebody said, well, why don't you put that line, instead of flushing that water or spend the money, put it in the hydrant, supply the water for the makeup water, the boiler, because it's basically iron-free. You wouldn't have to spend all the money to put the iron filter in. So that's what they're doing. So the water, the makeup water of the boiler is that on that line. So that water is 30,000 or 40,000 gallons of water being used at the end of that line. So that water is moving through there. So it killed two birds with one stone. And it's not under the rate for the project when they're paying the bond and they're using 500,000 gallons of water a day. They're using the same rates that we were paying.
Just do the retail rates that are in effect.
Yeah, for everybody.
That's what they're paying, yeah.
Yeah.
So that will help maybe bridge some of that
Yeah.
gap for a little while.
Yeah, well, if they're using 30,000 gallons a day, and that wasn't, that
Oh, it's
bill-
30 a day?
30,000 a day.
Oh, okay.
So that wasn't a full month read, right? Is that what you said? It's not a full month?
Thank you.
I just wanted to jot that down for you. So that's their first bill
Supposed
on
to be
that
80 gallons
specific
Retail rate.
meter.
Was that for a full month?
What's the date today, 17th? It was for, I don't know, maybe 3 weeks.
Well, yeah. if
I mean,
we-
it's not huge, but from now to the end of the year, I anticipate it being roughly around that every month. And that's just that specific
Well,
line.
that's perfect, because, you know, you have good strong cash balances, but we don't wanna be depleting that.
Yeah,
You know, it's really a whole lot if we can't help it, but if you're adding $6,000 a month, that's gonna add up, that's gonna help offset, you know, any potential.
it's like 190
Shortfalls.
or something.
Well, yeah, 30,000 a day is
72,000.
900,000 a month.
Yeah, it was a 751,000
Yeah,
gallon.
so it's gonna be.
So it's close. Yeah, it'll be more than that a little bit, so.
Maybe another 15% or
So
something.
I think you're gonna be, I think you're,
What's that?
When I was talking about $1 million a moment ago, that's kind of, I was rounding.
Yeah, yeah.
I think with that, I think you're gonna be fine until, you know, to kind of help get us to the point where we're starting to collect from WCC and.
Mhm.
I mean, WCC, that's gonna be, say, 400,000 gallons per day, which is on a different rate, but that's still substantial.
So substantial, yeah. And when we ran our original number, you know, with sewer, we were looking at rate decrease. I'm not convinced,
A rate what?
but for sewer, you know, when they connected, we had that rate decrease
Right.
for the residents.
I don't think that should
I
happen.
don't know that we're, yeah, I think,
I mean, especially with operational expenses being what they are, Nathan did stress that today,
Yeah,
he's like,
and-
it's,
And maybe within a year, we're gonna have a large water consumer to the north that's gonna be bringing in revenue.
New Durham, right?
New Durham.
which that can help, you know, kind of help bridge that gap too,
but
but,
also along with that.
Because
come those
we have the
expenses,
cost, we already have the cost for that because we're pumping that
just
water.
flipping it, right? They just flip the,
Yeah, we're selling all that water to South Coast, which if they hook into it,
Mhm.
well, yeah, we're not pumping that water for them now, but yeah,
So I think there's obviously some good opportunities, it's gonna help. I mean, otherwise, we'd be looking at probably pretty significant increases, but with the WCC and potentially New Durham and all that, that's really gonna.
Not so significant, but maybe not, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say, we can't say that there's no rate increases
Right.
at all at this point, but definitely much less than what we'd be looking at without.
And if that was the case, would it be wise enough just to, if we did increase rates, and if it came in a timely manner with the trash rate, wouldn't you do that all at the same time?
You could, yeah.
I just know in the, obviously my office gets all phone calls, right? So when you do a rate increase, after you haven't done one, when you should have done one for 10 years, and you do a great big one at once, a lot of people I find don't dig that, right? So, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, with the water rate adjustment, what we're gonna have to do here soon,
Yeah.
probably before
your number.
Yeah.
it'll be before the end of the year, whenever we close with the SRF on the loan,
Oh,
that's when we're gonna have to make a determination on whether we need a rate increase or decrease or no rate change at all. That's when we're gonna need to decide, because that's when the loan is being taken out.
yeah. Well,
That's gonna affect their rate too, because we haven't established a rate, right?
Right,
We just have ballpark numbers back
yeah.
a day.
oh,
Once we get the final pricing from John, what's the name of the,
Bowen?
Bowen, then we'll be able to run our final numbers on it,
okay.
yeah. Yep. So that's what we have on water.
Oh,
You wanna talk through the capital plan for water in W5? See if there's anything on there that
I,
we need to adjust?
Mike, are we going to, how much of this are we going to be able to acquire through the project? Any of it? You know how Nathan was saying,
On this plan, I took out everything that looked to be specific to the project
okay,
on here. I did actually have one question for you guys on this, on the service line repair allowance.
service?
It looked, it has the four, it's the
Yep.
last, it's the line in yellow. It looked like you guys were doing that each year out of your repairs and maintenance, looking through the detail. So I
Yeah.
zeroed that out, but I just wanted to make sure that was the case.
Are you
So
talking
we
like
didn't wanna-
main breaks and stuff, is that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 'cause it looked like you guys were paying for it out of operating, so we didn't wanna double count
Right.
both in
Oh.
operating and also show it on the capital plan.
Right, we are paying out of operating, the
Okay.
main breaks and all that.
Okay.
The intent on the water project was to try and, through that, get this side of town replaced, right?
Yep, yeah, lead
Is
service lines and,
Doing that through the project?
yes, that's what we're still trying to do.
Okay,
If SRF will allow us to do that,
Okay.
that's what we're gonna try and do, yeah.
That's why everything's up in the air with the street paving and everything.
Yeah, yeah, you don't wanna dig anything up before you have to.
This is, okay, I'm gonna ask, oh, this is capital, so never mind, just answer my question.
The one thing we did have in here, an assumption, was the dump truck,
Yeah,
a grant of 75,000, is that looking accurate?
what,
Dump truck.
I don't know.
would they need?
Nathan said, I think Nathan brought that up.
Oh, to be used, oh, I know, to be used for, with remaining sewer bond proceeds, or included in the water. bond.
I thought
Would-
Nathan had said some of these stuff
Would that be on the money between, on the guaranteed savings with Bowen, that if the price was lower, that we would use that contingency, that basically contingency money, right?
You know, I don't know, I didn't have the conversation with them, but maybe that's what they're thinking. I don't know. I mean, you can include dump trucks in, bond issues, but we don't typically.
Trying to think what would be the dump truck.
Yeah, I can't remember, I know we had our conversation, Laura, and this was quite a while ago, when we went through the Capitol.
This isn't, I mean, Nathan, I know Nathan said about that truck, I got the truck, I don't know why, I just don't remember why. I mean, I don't know,
Find out, it doesn't ring a bell with me right now,
Right.
why?
the large meter replacement, that's probably spot on. I mean, he did talk about that today too. Water tower maintenance allowance.
That I think is putting money back each year for when the tower has to be repainted.
Okay.
Yeah, that's just a accumulation of year over year, so you have money in theory to do that work when you need it.
Okay.
You're not actually spending it, but.
It's probably, every tower is probably every 15 to 20 years, maybe, probably closer to 20.
Okay,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah, 20 times 12, 5. Yeah, it's a couple $100,000 to paint a tower.
Even more when you paint the neighbor's
So I see it
trucks.
says, where's the vehicle?
Said even more when you paint the neighbor's truck.
In 26, wait a minute.
Yeah, and I had
Utility
a
vehicle
96 space
replacement.
truck, and they painted the light
In
blue.
26, is
covered
that what
truck.
this
Yeah,
says?
75,000 and 26 and
That's
75.
what-
is that for
28.
So
Oh,
the painting company.
is that for one truck?
Yeah, I went through you
Yeah,
guys today,
well,
take it to
so
detail.
it's 150,000 for
They
new
marked it
pickup.
all off, but
Utility plans to replace 2 trucks in the 5-year
Clay market
period, and
before.
split
I
50/50
can't
water
remember
and
why.
50 in sewer.
light blue speckle.
So it's
So
150 per
seven-
truck, so 2 of them,
The
and
truck
then
was 6
splitting
months
it between water and sewer.
So it's 75 trucks.
97?
Yep,
Oh, man.
per utility.
98.
So he's saying $150,000
Yeah,
for a new pickup. That seems high.
for one truck?
Says total cost of
Yeah, that's what I had,
150
that's
for
what I
one.
had from my.
I know.
notes with that.
One in 26 and one in 28, am I reading that right?
Or is it 150 total? So 75,000 and 26 and again in 28, is that correct?
Yeah, I think we may have our numbers wrong there, because I think maybe what we need to do is verify how many trucks.
Yeah, my.
It's gotta be 75 per truck.
It has to be, and that's the other time. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's a hell of a truck for 75.
Right, for a utility truck, you know, I mean, I know they're
would,
expensive,
I would
but-
put a razor.
yeah, but not use it like, well, they're ready to get all dirty and, you know.
Yeah.
All right, I mean, that's probably a highlight, but.
Yeah, maybe demonstrate that.
Get them a Menards truck, they sell those every few years.
Right?
Fastenal.
That's all Dodge.
I mean, everything else looks, I guess if that's what Nathan
Yeah, we'll get with Nathan on these.
said, yeah.
Yeah, because we can get those nailed down, we'll use this list for the rate study that, for the cost service study for WCC too.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we have an accurate 5-year capital plan.
Okay.
When we work on that here this fall.
Did we already go over all the other, like any new staffing that, like all that stuff, like
Yeah, that's,
personal services part of this, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, that's not in here because
Okay.
we left the WCC project out, but that's gonna
Okay.
be included in the
Perfect.
final rate study.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, my brain hurts now.
I can understand that.
Oh, you.
A lot to cover.
Maybe emailing these guys going, wait a minute. Yeah,
Is there anything else? Guys, I appreciate you
Not
coming
that
out,
I-
especially
unless they have
you're on
something.
fast time.
We are on fast.
oh my goodness, it's
Yeah,
past
it's
Jeff's
mine.
bedtime.
Yeah,
My bedtime is like 9 o'clock. So.
he's probably got his jammies on.
How do you know that?
Well, yeah, well, thank you,
Okay, thanks for coming out.
yeah, we'll get some more better.
For you guys, there's gonna be a quiz tomorrow on everything here, you know, so.
It's fun stuff.
If you look-
Have
if
you ever
you-
go back to the
I thought it
capital
was,
exam
you know,
and,
pretty
you have a
comprehensive,
call to go back
I
through
feel like I have a
With
better
Nathan?
idea
Yeah.
of what
Yeah.
to do with
Yeah.
the
or send me an
finances and
email.
stuff.
And I know you guys,
Michael's
I'll
gonna
do
take
for you,
that.
it's a lot
Get me,
coming in,
and then I'll
you know.
shoot ya.
Oh, it's good.
Nathan is
Yeah,
going
it
to
just-
Canada tomorrow, so he'll be gone for next week, but after that.
I know more on the utilities.
I'll get
because
the-
I've been-
I'll meet up with him.
I've been on the utilities for so long.
So,
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
answering
thanks.
questions and just taking the time to get us up to speed and everything else. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We should-
Thank you
that
for
on-
having us. It was nice meeting
it's
everyone.
not off yet.
Yeah, we'll, budget process, I assume, you're gonna be starting that if you haven't already, and
Lori,
you guys are
I,
working on that.
I still need from the, DLGF, they still have not approved my request. I sent them the email and copied you on it.
I saw
They,
it.
it errored out when she was trying to give me, submission rights, and they said they were looking into it, but they haven't granted me access yet.
We're working.
You're doing a background check on the item.
Yeah, yours is the only one I've ever had throw up an error report, so when you sent me that email, I'm like, oh, you must have, you know, like, clicked in the wrong place, because that LDA page is so confusing.
Yeah.
When you sent me the screenshot, like, oh, that's the right place, I just have no clue what that error
Right.
message is.
I thought maybe I screwed it up.
No, and their website is so confusing. Like,
It is.
The URL looks almost the same,
Mhm.
it's just different enough, like
Mhm.
3 characters that,
Yeah.
that I know I've clicked on the wrong place like 1,000 times.
Mhm. Yeah, but yeah, I'll get you in as soon as they get me.
Yeah, if I don't hear back from, by the end of next week, I'll just give the person a call that, whose contact
Oh, yeah,
information
okay.
is there, because I did get an actual, person send just the help desk back.
Okay, that's
That's
good.
unusual.
Yeah,
I'll take it though.
yeah,
Yeah, nothing else, we will adjourn.
yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you,
7:04.
appreciate it.
All
I
right.
thought maybe I'd see you drive up in your
Chevelle. I almost, at lunch,